In our Pacific Rim section this weekend, Hong Kong investors are a little wary of the colony's future, despite assurances that its capitalist system will not be changed when it reverts to Chinese rule at the end of this century. There's been a flight of capital, with much of it going to Vancouver, British Columbia. FNN's Richard Saxton recently returned from Vancouver. He filed this report.
Money magazine recently ranked Seattle as the most livable city in the United States. Well, 100 miles north across the Canadian border is Vancouver, thought by many to be the most livable city in the world.
Frankly, I think Seattle's catching up to Vancouver. They just had a capping proposal which puts a cap on development in Seattle, which we've had on Vancouver since 1976. We have always had a sense in Vancouver of the balance of life, if you want. We want it to be a city that people can work in, people who can live in, but also that people can enjoy.
The consensus is that Vancouver's economic boom was triggered in 1986 when the city hosted the Expo 86 World's Fair. The sun was shining on this typically rain-drenched paradise that summer. Behind me is the Expo 86 site. After an international bidding war, it was purchased by Li Ka-shing, a Hong Kong billionaire. And that 1988 purchase convinced more Asians to invest in the Vancouver market.
What Expo did, through massive government spending to build the fair and the spending that was done by the visitors, gave us a huge injection very quickly, and it brought us out of the economic doldrums.
Michael Goldberg is an urban land economist and Vancouver's resident expert on incoming foreign money. In 1988, more new Canadians came from Hong Kong than anywhere else in the world, with many of the so-called yacht people landing on the shores of Vancouver.
What they do is they bring capital, they bring know-how, and they bring ready-made business connections to export what they make. And as a result, British Columbia has had the most rapidly growing manufacturing sector in Canada for the last 2 years.
When the richest man in Hong Kong makes an investment, many people follow. Li Ka-shing is said to control 20% of the equity in the Hong Kong Stock Exchange and 1/3 of all retail sales on Hong Kong Island. His company will spend $2 billion over the next 10 to 15 years developing the prime 200-acre Expo site. Stanley Kwok, a director of Li Ka-shing's Concord Pacific Developments, explains the move to Vancouver.
Vancouver is a very attractive city to invest in because if you compare the prices in Vancouver today, it is very low compared with other cities.
British Columbia has 3 million people, including more than 200,000 Chinese. A year ago, real estate investor David Lam became the lieutenant governor of BC, the Queen's representative in the province. The appointment was recognition of the Chinese presence. Commercial real estate broker Andrea Eng says Hong Kong Asians own nearly 10% of Vancouver's prime downtown real estate.
They're not out here to buy the world. They're looking to diversify, but in terms of that cultural heritage, in ancient China there were 2 ways to get ahead. One was through owning land and, having your farm products so that your future generations will never starve. And the other way was through education.
Investing in Canada is a foreigner's ticket to immigration status. The 1986 Business Immigration Act created 3 ways for investors to become Canadians. In 1988, $817 million came into British Columbia from Hong Kong this way. The most used category is the entrepreneur, who actively manages a business and employs at least 1 Canadian. A self-employed must support his family on his small business. And the investor immigrant needs a net worth of $500,000 and to invest $250,000 for at least 3 years into local business. 150 mutual funds have been formed to accommodate the investor immigrant. Steve Funk's $70 million Maple Leaf Fund is the largest.
To date, we have, through about a deployment of about $40 million in this province and another 25 to 30 in Manitoba, created something like 2,000 jobs and have invested in about 15 different business enterprises.
Hungarian-born residential real estate developer Andrei Molnar currently has projects valued at $70 million with Hong Kong investors.
They're known as gamblers, but they really, when it comes to the real estate business, they always have a lot of equity and they have staying power. And the My Business Staying Power is the name of the game.
One of the side effects of the capital inflow has been the residential boom. Housing prices have soared. And with it, the controversy of maximizing lot space.
In terms of the single-family homes, what we've called monster homes, and I think it's happening in San Diego and Los Angeles and Toronto and all over the place, is we've downzoned, in fact, the allowable floor space by about almost 25%. We're still looking at how you can fit those walls and roofs and front yards into neighborhoods so that they're not a traumatic change in the neighborhood. In fact, I try to remind people that this is an issue of change, not an issue of race.
Now that the word is out that Vancouver is a livable city with good real estate value, the boom is expected to continue. Vancouver, like many other West Coast cities, is feeling and dealing with the effects of globalization. In Vancouver, British Columbia, I'm Richard Saxton on the Financial News Network.